One is memorial. We will hear the voices of the brave parents of individuals who lived in Willowbrook, who saw the injustices there, who worked together to close it down. To that end, we will view interviews with these parents. It is vitally important that we hear their voices. We will also hear from the two doctors who supported these parents in their activism. The second purpose of this evening is to inspire advocacy and activism today. While Willowbrook and other institutions like it have long since closed, the situation today for people with disabilities who depend on the government has reached a crisis point. Perennial budget constraints and a fading commitment to care and protection since the Willowbrook era has degraded their circumstances and put them in danger of abuse and neglect. We hope that the words of those interviewed for this project and others who will speak today will inspire activism among parents and others who care for individuals who may have limited opportunity to speak out on their own behalf. Before we proceed, let's view a short clip from Geraldo Rivera's expose, Willowbrook, the Last Great Disgrace.
Well, I visited the State Institution for the Mentally Retarded, and I think particularly at Willowbrook that we have a situation that borders on a snake pit, and that the children live in filth, that many of our fellow citizens are suffering tremendously because lack of attention, lack of imagination, lack of adequate manpower. There's very little future for the children or for those who are in these institutions. Both need a tremendous overhauling. I'm not saying that those who are the attendants there or the ones that run the institution are at fault. I think all of us are at fault. And I think it's just long overdue that something be done about it.
It's been more than 6 years since Robert Kennedy walked out of one of the wards here at Willowbrook and told newsmen of the horror he'd seen inside. He pleaded then for an overhaul of a system that allowed retarded children to live in a snake pit. But that was way back in 1965, and somehow we'd all forgotten. I first heard of this big place with the pretty sounding name because of a call I received from a member of the Willowbrook staff, Dr. Michael Wilkins. The doctor told me he'd just been fired because he'd been urging parents with children in one of the buildings, building number 6, to organize so they could more effectively demand improved conditions for their children. The doctor invited me to see the conditions he was talking about, so unannounced and unexpected by the school administration, we toured building number 6. The doctor had warned me that it would be bad. It was horrible. There was one attendant for perhaps 50 severely and profoundly retarded children, lying on the floor naked and smeared with their own feces. They were making a pitiful sound, the kind of mournful wail that it's impossible for me to forget. This is what it looked like, this is what it sounded like, but how can I tell you about the way it smelled? It smelled of filth, it smelled of disease, and it smelled of death. We've just seen something that's probably the most horrible thing I've ever seen in my life. Is that typical of ward life?
Yes, there are 5,300 patients at Willowbrook, which is the largest institution for the mentally retarded in the world. The ones that we saw were the most severely and profoundly retarded. There are thousands there like that, not going to school, sitting on the ward all day, not being talked to by anyone, only 1 or 2 or 3 people to take care of 70 people on the ward, sharing the same toilet, contracting the same diseases together. 100% of patients at Willowbrook contract hepatitis within 6 months of being in the institution. Most patients at some time in their life have parasites. The incidence of pneumonias is greater than any other group of people that I think exist in this country. Trauma is severe because these patients are left together on a ward, 70 retarded people, basically unattended, fighting for a small scrap of paper on the floor to play with, fighting for the attention of the attendants who are overworked, trying to clean them, feed them, clothe them, and if possible pay a little attention to them and work with them and develop their intelligence. The what in fact happens is that they go downhill.
I show this video every semester to the students in our special education program, and I find it deeply disturbing every time. Now, to begin our presentation, please meet Diane Buglioli, an advocate over her 50-year career in the field of developmental disabilities, co-founder of A Special Place. She is the co-chair of Willowbrook Legacy Committee on the Staten Island Developmental Disabilities Council and sits on the Willowbrook Mile Committee, which is a collaboration project between the council and the college.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Good evening, everyone. The expose was aired some 50 years ago, but renews within me great sadness and anger whenever I see and hear it. As some of you know, I worked at Willowbrook State School from 1969 to 1980. On my first day of work, I opened heavy steel doors with this key. Let's try and get in there. With this key. After each door, I became anxious about who was behind such ominous doors. After I opened the fourth door, I found behind that door 40 toddlers. That surreal scene has stayed with me all of my career. It continues to be a focus of mine to ensure that such a dehumanizing system never operates again. In 1980, my colleague Genevieve Benoit and I left Willowbrook and opened A Very Special Place with 30 former residents of Willowbrook who were among our first group of people to receive services in the Staten Island community. We must learn from history, but more importantly, we are obligated to ensure that that learning is vitalized into action to ensure true social justice. I'm so proud to have moderated the interviews with the parents from the Willowbrook closure. Today, we are visible as advocates only because we are standing on their shoulders. When we spoke during our interviews, I clearly heard their sense of frustration for what they are experiencing and observing today in our field of care. During these 2 hours, we will view excerpts from 8 hours of interviewing conducted with those parents. They are Diana and Malachi McCord, parents of Nina, Jerome Isaacs, father of Lowell, and Mary Sullivan, his wife, who worked at Willowbrook, Ida Rios, mother of Anthony, Ann Nearbauer, mother of Stephen, and Willa Mae Goodman, mother of Marguerite. I could spend more time specifying their credentials and achievements as board members, task force leaders, radio show hosts, authors, legal consultants, and government-appointed monitors, not to mention a long list of awards as community advocacy leaders. Honestly, the fact that these parents activated their advocacy to close down the largest institution in the world is all one needs to know. We will also hear from Doctors Michael Wilkins and William Bronston, who worked at Willowbrook at that moment. They helped to organize these parents into an effective group of activists. Our first section is comprised of the parents sharing with us their memories of Willowbrook, a powerful experience to have lived. We are thankful for their strength to explain it to us this evening.
Well, there are so many, but I chose one that still to this day I am aware of, and that was the smell of Willowbrook. You would just walk in the door of any building, except the administration building, and smell it. My daughter, when I would visit her, smelled of it, and her clothes smelled of it. And even though it wasn't her clothes, it was never her clothes. And I would take her home and put her in a bathtub, but her favorite thing was running water in the bathtub. So she would stay there for half an hour because she was so happy there. and I would wash and wash her hair and wash her hair. And she still, even after that, I could smell Willowbrook on her. And then when you go back, it was there again. But just even after I left her, that smell just stayed with me. And I'd wake up in the middle of the night and smell that smell. But the other thing was the din, the sounds that were just all the time, just ricocheting off the walls. And some of them sort of screaming, some were moaning. And my daughter had a very low moan that she did regularly in a rhythmic, sort of compulsive way. But it was a cacophony of sound that you couldn't get away from until you go out into the beautiful green lawn where there'd be maybe one or two people walking around. You know, the Willowbrook people were not walking around except to get from one building to another building.
Right.
So those are the two quick memories. Of course, the visual memories of seeing the people, which is undescribable. But the first time I saw really inside was when Dr. Bronson invited me to his building, which I guess was building 7, where he chose not to medicate the people that live there as much as was traditional. And the chaos there was Dante-like. I mean, it was just, I'll never forget it. Again, I can't go into it now. It just makes me cry.
We would get a ride from a friend who also would go there. When we would leave, Steve would run over by a certain window to watch the car go. And I still remember looking back and waving, crying all the way home that I had to leave him there.
I was working in Building 6, and I have many memories for me. Behind the door, there might be 1 or 2 attendants, as we called them at the time, with 80 or 90 people. Most of the guys in Building 6 didn't really have any clothes. Clothes would come from the laundry in a big giant heap, and they would just kind of throw them out. And it was like Ann said about the hats, you know, people would grab what clothing they could and try to get it on. The dining room was chaotic in Building 6, and everybody got 1 cup of milk. And the first thing that the people who were waiting for their meal did was chug that milk down. That was the only liquids they got other than drinking out of the toilets. So that was a really, really hard thing to watch. People were hungry, and one day a young man grabbed a whole hot dog and shoved it down his throat and started to choke. And he ended up dying. The doctor tried to yank it out, but it couldn't come out. And I was there when that happened. It was really traumatic. And another thing medically related was, I remember one person got wounded. I'm not sure if it was from the skeleton key or somehow he got a big cut on his head. And we were I was in the medical office with him, and the doctor takes out a needle and he's ready to start stitching up this wound. I said, wait, aren't you going to give him any lidocaine or something? And of course, the boy is screaming, you know, he's seeing blood and he's in pain. And the doctor said to me, boy, no feel pain. I said, what? No feel pain? Why do you think he's screaming? I am not going to help you. I will not help you do the suturing unless you give him some lidocaine or something. And, you know, this was just like the attitude that this person didn't have the same nervous system as the rest of us, wasn't feeling any pain. I'm thinking, this is a doctor. What are we doing here?
I'm going to answer the question in terms of the advocacy.
Okay.
Now, I didn't start my own advocacy. Let me tell you that I was spotted, I was recruited, I was trained, and I was introduced by someone who I was told was a communist, and someone who lived in a commune. And in 1971, I did not know what a commune was. And that person was Dr. Bill Bronston. He spotted me, he spotted Diane, he spotted Malachi, he spotted Ida, he spotted William Ye, and he recruited us.
Right. Yeah.
He honestly recruited us. He looked for advocates. He found advocates. He trained advocates because he was a communist. I'm teasing. It was like being in a cell. We were trained, and I was trained to bond with these people. And I have bonded with them. I know them now for 50 years.
Yeah.
That's right.
And for 50 years, if you go back to Building 76, 5 of us out of Building 76 were named plaintiffs. Now, you don't find named plaintiffs coming out of one building, but that's the way it was. And the number of people who became advocates out of that building is amazing in terms of people and named plaintiffs and people who went on in Brooklyn and in Manhattan to do any numbers of things. We did it in a golden age. It's the same thing as 1950 was a golden age for voluntaries. Suddenly people began looking for each other. That's how I became an advocate. We came from the same building. We had the same doctor. We had the same objective.
And I had a radio show, Jerry, too. That was
That's
handy.
right. Yeah,
And the bells of hell, that's what it was.
Or ding-a-ling-a-ling.
You
For
like
you,
that one,
but not for me.
Unnatural. And that's
Oh,
how
death, where is thy sting-a-ling-a-ling? Or grave thy victory.
Malachi,
allowing that,
Malachi,
yeah.
didn't you call that board of directors a bunch of murderers and you almost gave them heart attacks?
I did, yeah. They said, how dare you? Yeah.
I remember the chair throwing incident at a meeting. I don't know, two
remember-
fighting and throw.
We had very exciting meetings, I must
We
say.
certainly did,
Oh,
yeah.
That was,
Diane, I remember sitting down on Victory Boulevard with Murray Steps, and I'm worried about losing my job.
Yeah.
That this is going to make the press. And Murray says to me, sit down.
We sat down in Victory Boulevard outside of Willowbrook, and we refused to move. And we stopped all the traffic.
And you stopped the
See?
traffic?
Yeah, you went to the Statue of Liberty.
oh, that was
No,
the best. We tried to take over the Statue of Liberty, but we only had what, 8 people.
Don't forget to get Goody's piece too.
It was 9 with the statue herself.
Well, I know that Goody story about having the young lords surround Gouverneur Hospital.
Right.
That's an
was
incredible story. And I remember Murray telling me that he went to go visit Goody. Goody was in Gouverneur, and he said it was surrounded by these young lords. He said, and there I am, with my Jewish self in my little suit walking in. He said, and I was a little nervous, so I had to call Goody. And Goody had to come down to tell him, he's okay, let him in, he's my friend.
But don't forget that the young lords had 2 consultants who were doctors.
Yeah,
One
Right.
was
Mike
Bronston,
Wilkins.
the other one was
Wilkins.
it was Wilkins.
So these guys had helped the
Very
young
young
lords,
lord. Yeah, they were,
and here they were at Willowbrook.
And Geraldo was a young lord.
yeah, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had all these communists and
That's
everybody.
right,
on
all
the
these
line,
street
yeah.
fighters. Sometimes you have
I'm Mike Wilkins. Thanks for having me. Like you, I'm a little shaken by the video. I want to thank my friend, Bernard Carabello, for helping me recall the details of the institution where he grew up until age 20. I am from Missouri. I took 2 years out of my internal medicine training to get a job at Willowbrook, and I worked with Dr. Bill Bronston to make change. The institution housed over 5,000 souls. Dr. Bronston and I were widely separated. Initially, we started learning the grind of the place. It became clear that the parents did the most to benefit from organization. On Sunday, parents were authorized to take their kids out of their building from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. They would come to the front door of their kid's building. The kid would be brought to the parents dressed in the clothes which the parents had provided for them, not in the gray institutional rags they had to wear in the day room. The parents were never allowed to go into the back where the kids lived. They were told they could not even peek into the day room. Inside the day room on Sundays, kids would cluster by the door, hoping for a visit, and some would be looking at the door until at 4 p.m. The parents who visited had their child on furlough for 3 hours. This was a ritual for them. The word ritual is inside the word spiritual. And these Sunday visits had the gravitas, the longing for connection, and the spiritual tone of a ritual. The visitation time was an assertion of family power and a show of resistance to family separation. It was the only time that the institution was open to the outside world. Families were otherwise marginalized. Building 6 had an outdoor grill. I started having educational meetings, serving hot dogs off the grill. Just a few parents came in at the first meeting. Elizabeth Lee gave the first talk describing the role of social workers. The next meeting, we had a teacher, then a speech therapist. Each Sunday, there were more parents at the meetings. They shared a frustration with the official parent organization. They shared anguish over the miserable conditions. Some blamed me, and I told them, please do not shoot the messenger. Soon we began meeting in a larger room on the grounds. We took the parents into the back rooms. Some cried. This all was happening on Sunday, and it went unnoticed at first. The meetings evolved into strategy sessions. The parents' first effort was to protest the budget cut, which had begun in March 1970. It had made the situation go from bad to cruel. The parents sponsored a public meeting on Staten Island at which the speaker was the World Health Organization Director for Intellectual Disabilities. We had taken him to some of the buildings. At the public meeting, he emotionally denounced the conditions of Willowbrook. He told why residential institutions are inappropriate for the disabled. Around that time, the local newspaper published articles about the conditions and the frustrations. In November, the director of the institution addressed a Sunday meeting of the parent group. He refused to make a public statement, and he denied that there was a crisis. The parents angrily told him he was part of the problem and ejected him from the meeting. Leslie and I had been at that meeting, and soon a memo came from the director's office saying no employee had permission to attend the parent meetings. But we violated the order, and some other employee supporters of the parents also attended the next Sunday meeting. Very quickly, Liz and I were fired. The supervisor of Building 6 handed me my pink slip. I was in shock. I packed up my belongings and went home. At home, I noticed that my key was still in my pocket. It could open all the residential buildings at Willowbrook. I slept poorly that night. The next day, I called Geraldo, and he agreed to bring a camera and a sound crew. We met at a diner the next morning and drove to Building 6. We entered the back door with my key. The crew filmed for quite a long time. The attendants on duty kept working as we filmed, and one of them smiled at me once. She did not notify her supervisor until we left the building. Everything changed after the footage hit the national news that day. My last memory of Willowbrook
was when I was walking with the TV crew by Building 6. One of the boys shouted out, "Dr. Wilkins, when are you going to get me out of here?" Thank you.
This is a very moving experience. There are 430 of you out there watching this meeting, and I hope that we will have some impact on you in relationship to what has to happen, because Willowbrook is nothing but a primitive cancer, and it was cut out. But the disease still exists, and it's widespread throughout the nation, and hopefully this discussion that we're going to have will lead us to look at the big picture, because without understanding the need for unity and the big picture, everybody lives in the suffering and agony of their personal dramas, which is absolutely unacceptable. So what happened with Willowbrook was that we went in there originally to see if we could organize the workers, because it was the largest factory for African-American workers in the city of New York at the time. And what happened was that the administration had successfully split the workers between the company union and a nationalist black organization that seemed to be a function of the Attorney General's office of the state of New York, neither of which provided safe harbor for any of the really serious workers at the institution. And then we were faced with this gigantic budget cut. There were 60 buildings on the campus of this concentration camp. And I was in one of the buildings, moved to a second building after a while because of a problem that I had with the superintendent. I kept going back to him for correction of situations, like getting proper suture material, like getting necessary materials for doing the wound correction and so forth. And it was clear that we needed to find a force that had the capacity to be able to challenge the state of New York. The issue was not just Willowbrook. It was the state of New York, because there were no community services in the entire state at the time. It was Willowbrook or stay at home. And so the pressure on the population to deal with dependent members of their families, whether they had developmental disabilities or whether they were aging or whatever, was horrendous. I mean, it was just enormous. So first of all, the problem was understanding what we were working with, and it took time. It took months to see. For example, Geraldo's movie is not a movie of mental retardation. Everything that you saw was directly a function of a concentration camp that are exercising crimes against humanity, that are breaking the people inside the buildings. They're not dealing with the problem of having contractures or having mental retardation. They're dealing with violent oppression from a violent environment that changes everything. And you have to look at what is creating the problem. And we had to share with the families one at a time through tears, through private meetings in our offices, whatever, in order to show them it didn't have to be this way. It mustn't be this way. And so we called in our allies. Gunnar Dibwad, who Mike mentioned, was the World Health Organization consultant. Dr. Richard Koch, my mentor from Children's Hospital. Burton Blatt from Syracuse University. We invited our friends, Benk Neri, the top people in the world, to come and tour Willowbrook before the situation broke out. And we had this magnificent reporter whose name was Jane Curtin, who was with the Staten Island Advance, who somehow or another covered the meetings that we held in the community for community parents who were this tiny nidus of concerned parents who refused to let their children go into Willowbrook. Willowbrook was this gigantic, dark planet, like something out of Darth Vader, you know, that soaked up all the public money in the county in Staten Island. So the issue was how in the world we could mobilize a force that understood that they had power, that they had moral obligation, and that they had to somehow rid themselves of the pain of dealing with the savagery that was being imposed upon their kids. At one point after the expose, which really did change everything, we needed to stop the intention of fixing Willowbrook. the obstruction, the system wanted to fix the place. And what we were concerned about was closing the place entirely. And we needed a force to do that. And so a meeting was organized at a local monastery in Staten Island. All the lawyers in the Eastern Seaboard were invited that had been involved in class action lawsuits. They met by themselves. All the parent leaders from the entire state of New York came to that meeting, and they met in a separate room. And all of the academics, the radical progressive academics in special education, met separately. Each was assigned to come up with a comprehensive plan to change the institution. And within 10 days after that meeting, the class action lawsuit was filed in federal court against the governor in the state of New York for crimes against humanity, for violations of the Constitution. That mobilization, that theater of action, was what brought the parents together. Even though there were many different factions, the lawsuit was the critical spear that we needed in order to unite the parent movement, to understand that everybody was under the same umbrella of oppression and abuse from the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy did everything it could for 20 years to stop the action, notwithstanding that the court found them guilty of these crimes and moved the campaign to shut down the institution. So the institution leadership understood that if they could get rid of Ida Rios, if they could get rid of Diane McCourt, if they could get rid of Jerry Isaacs and put them into other boroughs with their kids in other institutions, that they could somehow break up this block of opposition to their crimes. And they were fairly successful, because what's happened is, as the institution got smaller and as there was dispersal of the families, the unity of the organization became more and more difficult, and people had to deal with problems in their local areas, which was exactly what the administration wanted to do. There is an answer, a comprehensive answer to this cancer in our society, and hopefully we'll get to talk about that. But the thing that was most important was that the heroism and the diligence and the commitment of these families was unbelievable, and the friendship and love that we shared was equally unbelievable. We ate together, we met together, we cried together, we organized together, and the courage of the parents and the work that they did publicly in the open in order to tackle the state of New York was really extraordinary. So the issue here is finding a common vision of what will solve this horrendous problem of concentration, of segregation, of discrimination, of violence against the largest piece of the population, which are people with special needs. People who are different are automatically in a very, very dangerous place in society. So I don't have that much time, but we'll get into conversation soon and get to some of the real answers here. Thank you so much.
And then when I went into the building, they did not have a bracelet for the kids. They had written on their arm their name. So it reminded me of what I've heard about the Holocaust and about slavery with Black people. So I felt that they would not do it to the kids, and I would not permit them to do it. And I said to myself, I'd rather die fighting than to die not trying. So we all, have this thing about our kids. Our kids may have different degrees of mental retardation, but they're all our kids. And they need us. We say now they don't have a voice. They do have a voice. It's our voice, but it's our voice who is silent, not theirs. So I always felt and believed that we have a right to fight for those who are less fortunate. God put us here for a reason. He did not put us here to be silent. He put us here to continue on fighting and speak it out on all of the kids, regardless of who they are.
Because of a broken heart, my heart, but the heart was still beating. And I became involved because a number of times when we would go to visit Stephen in Building 19, that first building, and we have a lot of other children, so we would take one or two of them with us, being given a ride because we did not have a car to get do the trip out to Willowbrook at the time, and we would go on public transportation, which took 2 hours. And but those 2 hours were mixed with joy and sorrow when we saw what we saw, which I insisted on looking behind those closed doors that were locked. So I had to decide I can't take them back home, not now, but I'm going to have to do something to change things and bring them back. And the Benevolent Society had a man that I kept hearing his name, Tony Pinto. And I called Tony Pinto. And from that time on, Tony would call me and give me different information. And so I became, at that point, an advocate by telephone, by going out there occasionally, unannounced, and getting a lot of information that only made me more resolute to keep going. And I kept going, and thank God I'm still going.
When I put my son in the institution, I put him in because they kept throwing him out of the school program. So I was looking for a program for him. And the only place I could put him with was Willowbrook. I thought they would be the professionals and know how to handle my son. But they also threw him out. And you know what? That made me very angry. And I went up to them. I said, you're supposed to be the professionals in the field, because the Board of Education in the city did not really have the right professional people at that time, you know, to deal with our special needs, right? And they did take him back because I went up there and I fought. Another thing that, something else that really was very encouraging, everyone, our people, my people here know, Bill Bronston's uncle, I think he was, I can't remember his name right now, but I remember him saying, if we all get together and join the Benevolent Society, we will be a big group, and we could put out that board of directors who sat around and didn't do anything for the kids. And they were really the director's friends. You can't be their friends, you know, you could be okay, but you can't be that friendly and let the people live how they were living, you know? Mm-hmm. So what we did, we followed his advice. We all joined the organization and we became the majority. And thank God for that, because then we made our demands. Now, I never thought I would be an advocate. That never crossed my mind. I was going to be an advocate. I was just an angry parent that I joined a few other angry parents about, you know, to fight for the conditions.
So I asked him 3 times. So that's the day that I decided that I had to fight for Marge. And later on, I knew that I had to fight for others. Like Mother Snaps always said, when you fight for, first you fight for your own, and then you fight for others. And that has always been my role, to fight for those who are like Marguerite Goodman, which is all of the kids are Marguerite Goodman. After choking him, 3 big black women had to pull me off of him. And when I came to my senses, I told him that from this day forward, I would be your queen, but you would never be my king. And he was going to come and ask me about the kids. I leave no man to make a decision for those who cannot speak for themselves. So I use my little 4-letter words and 5-letter words. And then from that day, I went home and I afro my hair and put on my hip huggers. I became a part of the Young Lords and the Black Panther.
And one of the other ones was when we would go to visit, I would bake for just a huge box of cookies. And, you know, the matron would have the key to open the door to the day room. And usually, you know, he would be ready. And they would open the door and they would shout, Neerbauer. And of course, he would come over. And all the other kids would come to the door. And one little boy came, a few times. I recognized his face, and he'd say, "Are you my mama? Are you my mama?" And I'd say, "No, I'm not your mama. Your mama can't come today." And he would just walk away. But the CAC kept me in that line because of that little boy that said, "Are you my mama?" He had no mama.
You know, it is extraordinary to me that this unique and powerful group of people came together at that moment in time, right? To bond and create such dynamic changes. It's really amazing. We are all hopeful that the seeds for such passionate actions will be nurtured today within the bounds of this lecture. It certainly is needed, since the care educational system for people with developmental disabilities over the last decade has seen the removal of $2.5 billion in funding. Aside from that sustained loss in funding, there has been a concerning return to a lack of true transparency and sharing of a common mission with government. There is a reduction in service availability in all aspects: clinical, programmatic, educational, and residential. Staffing is at a critical low as our field has been reduced to minimum hourly wages for tasks ironically now seen as essential during the pandemic. We have always known our field provides essential services. When moral decisions are solely based on a ledger sheet, people's lives are threatened and certainly damaged. Unfortunately, today we can see the markers in the disability field that permits people to not be protected from harm and refuses to give them the tools to thrive and experience life. Sadly, we know better. For those of us who experienced the low of Willowbrook, the heights of building a new service delivery system, and then the dismantling of those services, we can only observe with anguish that the government has placed our care system in hospice. Our system is being allowed to die. In this section, the parents share with us their observations about today's environment for people with developmental disabilities. And they share with us what has kept that passionate advocacy fire in each of their bellies ever fueled and vigilant.
You know, Willowbrook was a great equalizer. All of us, we became advocates for everybody because we were all equal. We weren't getting anything more than anybody else. And so we had to fight for everybody, not just for our own children.
A lot of people would not buy it or understand what I think and what I do and what I will say now. I have kept the fire going, and thank God I've been healthy enough to do it all these years. But that fire has been going because I have a crucifix in my pocketbook, and I look at the suffering Christ. And then I look at some of our people. And then I look at the joyous Christ in another way. And I see the joy in some of their faces. And I think they're just like anyone else. So why shouldn't they be treated just a little better? Because they can't go the whole way by themselves. Because of that, I've joined incident review committees over all these years, and I attend them and I speak out. I've spoken to the younger parents at WARC at some different meetings, explaining to them what used to be, what is now, what could be, but unless they become involved, it won't be. And they will go back to the medical model, and the developmental model will be gone forever.
Right.
I find joy in doing what I can do. Every one of them, every one of our people, they can laugh and they can cry. How different is that from you and I? And so why shouldn't they be treated better? That's what keeps the fire in my belly going. Of course, besides the love of the special love, in a way, of Stephen, which is a little bit of a different type of love from all my other kids, adults, not kids. So
Yeah.
I've joined, I stayed on the Willowbrook task force. I'm still on it. I've been very involved from day to day in the CAB for those people who don't have a soul in the world. That's been a great thing because we've not only helped them, but the word gets out to other parents and it's helped their children that some things can be done, not everything, but the quality of life that he did have in the past, it's waning. It's waning because of the funding.
What used to happen at Willowbrook, parents were so afraid of saying anything because of what was going to happen to our relative, our child or stepchild or whoever. There was that fear was infused. If you do this, we'll kick the shit out of her. We will do something to your relatives. There was all that kind of thing.
Retaliation.
So the first thing is fear. And so we have to say, there are more of us than there are of them. And we will not be afraid. We will define what we want and we will keep moving. And although I am 89 now, but we're still getting it gives me, yes, I have the fire because I love Diana, I love Nina, we have other children, but the whole thing is that we have to be motivated by love, by concern, by the gifts of laughter, the gifts of song, the right to be ourselves. And we will then make sure that Nina's and Anthony's and are all taken care of in that way. So what we need to do now is to get a center, someplace where we can touch each other, speak to each other, embrace each other, mourn when it's necessary. We will mourn too, because there are losses, there are there's tragedies, there's illness, all kinds of things. But we have overcome so much over the years that it's not necessary. We will not shrink from what we have to do now.
I think we need new ways for parents to communicate with each other, not just in a group home or even a cluster of group homes, but in general. We had, 5,500 families connected to each other through Willowbrook, that we had a center to organize in. And I think families now need, because the house I'm in, the place Nina's in, one parent doesn't exist and there's another parent. So that's not many for me to, to work with. So we need other centers, other places, other ways, maybe online, that parents can get together and explain to each other what's going on, or tell each other what's going on, or even organize online. You know, I mean, I think it's going to get very serious and we're going to need something like that.
We could have done that years ago, Diana, with the Bronx and the Willowbrook parents and the Brooklyn parents and the Queens parents. I think we missed that. We didn't.
But we had groups, but it was
they were
too hard to keep it going.
Everyone was on his own.
I think it sort of dispersed because people went into different places.
Yes, not only different borough, but to different homes and different right. So, but I think there would be ways of us coming together. online. I mean, everybody's getting good at it.
Yes, I was just.
Well, I
And
think it was
really, we have to figure out some way of having a more united voice, because the highly functioning autistic people's parents and the parents like I am of somebody that very limited functioning, they're like in two different worlds, you know. But we have a lot in common to fight for.
It's not the virus. The virus is bad, of course. But we was going bad long before the virus. OPWDD has never had a plan for the virus, for parents to visit their individuals. But why? It's because we as parents are not together. They wouldn't make these plans and rules and regulations if they looked out and saw a group of us out there protesting, like the kids are fighting about the cops beating our black men, as Black Life Matters, Black Life Matters. We got to remember, our children matters. But until they see us out there, they're going to do whatever they want to do and whenever they want to do it. We have got to. I know we're all up in age, but let's see how we can reach out to those who are younger and tell them our story. Because we all have a story. But what we have done, we have let them control our children. We have no rights. The children don't have no rights. And they're telling you that you cannot come. Why? What kind of plan do you have? They do not have a plan. They never had a plan. And they will never will get a plan. So what do? We blame the governor. We blame the commissioner amongst ourselves. A long time ago, Diane, we would be out there. We are not out there. So where is the voice for those that we fought for? We fought for them to get services. We fought for them to go in the community. Did we fight for you to take 3 kids out at a time, up the block, and you put it on, they went on a trip? No. We did not fight for that. We fought for our children have a right, civil right, a constitutional right. And I've always said to God, give me the will to keep speaking out on behalf of those who are less fortunate. Marguerite said to me in her eyes, I don't need you. The other kids need you who do not have parents to visit. How many kids do we have there that don't have no visitors?
Most of them.
At 119, we got 20-some kids. I think maybe 5 parents come. But do we talk to one another? No. Do we ask, how do we get what we got? No. I always felt that children had a right to enjoy life.
You know, after Willowbrook, all the services started to become available, many of the services. So I found, and maybe someone else could agree with me, that the younger parents had the services around the city to go to and reach out to them. And I think they didn't have the same desire or strength that we had when we started advocating and fighting for our rights, for the rights, you know?
Yeah.
I found that they were more lax. They took a lot of stuff for granted, a lot of services for granted, something that we didn't take for granted. So I think there was an era where people were more satisfied with what they were getting because things had changed a lot. But throughout the years, if you don't remain vigilant, things go right back to what they were.
Yeah.
And of course, I try to advise people now, you know, as to what they should be getting. Like we have all these group homes in the Bronx, and we hold our meetings, and we're always watching out for what's happening, and we let them know, look, you know, we could go right back to Willowbrook, and we're almost there. But I found there was a long period of time where people were very complacent because things were more available to them. And I think we're going backwards at this time. That's my opinion.
Let's talk. Let's plan. Let's structure. Because if we don't have it, we're going to lose out. And we lost everything that we fought for. If a child needs a wheelchair, it takes them 6 months to fix the wheelchair. If you have a leakage in your house, it takes them no time. They don't fix the leakage. So what have we done? We as parents have got to continue on speaking out and bringing people in. The news media is not going to focus on us because there's no votes amongst our kids. They cannot work. So they figure,
taxes.
But we know why.
People need to be inspired, not just faced with the facts. I mean, faced with facts, absolutely. But, you know, the movie Crip Camp, did you?
Yes, I saw it.
Has inspired so much. It's unbelievable who has watched that movie and who has been inspired by that movie. And it wasn't, they weren't hiding, you know, disabilities. There's some that were extremely disabled but the civil rights fight that Judy Heumann made and the rest of them at great discomfort. It's just something that excites people. It really excites them. And I think we also need to figure out ways to inspire people to think differently. I know that seeing how people were taking care of people with disabilities in small places throughout the country and other countries inspired me when I was at Willowbrook. It made it all feel possible. That the most extreme, which was 2 or 3 people living in the community together and having a good life, it's possible.
Right.
You know, and we need to also remember that people go by inspiration, not just horror. You know.
That I have the fear that we're going back to the Willowbrook. The only difference is that we're in group homes in the community, but the children are still in prison. We have to get the OPWDD and the union to take away our children's rights. And I don't like that at all.
You know, as I listen to these interviews again, the message just is so clear to me. If we don't learn the lessons from history, we will empower the wrongs from the past to become our future. Certainly Willowbrook was one of those wrongs. When I interviewed these remarkable activists, you know, they made their voices first heard in, you know, throughout the 70s. But the power of their words and their commitment remains as potent today. Each time I have spoken with them, I have been inspired and activated. They've taught me the difference between it being an activist and an advocate. An advocate is somebody who advocates for something, but an activist is someone who does something about it. I'm so hopeful that you listening to their experiences and listening to their focused, righteous determination will give you that same motivation that it did for me time and time again. As they said to you, they're in their 80s now, and still the power of their words is just extraordinary. I'm so honored to have been a small part of this journey with them. Catherine?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm working away behind the scenes. We're going to ask if there are people who would like to give responses to this, and we've been hearing some really wonderful things behind from people contacting the panelists. And so I think what I'm going to do is, if people would like to raise their hand if they'd like to give a response, I'm going to then promote you to be a panelist so that you can be heard and you can speak. David just raised his hand. I think, are you showing people how to raise a hand? So at the bottom of the screen, there's often a little button that looks like a hand, and it says raise their hand. So I'm going to then, it might be a little clunky, but I'll do my best, promote people as they raise their hands. Sorry, it just takes me a moment. There. Okay.
Susan. Susan has raised her hand. I see the...
Yep, there she is. And there is Susan. Hello. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. I just want to let everyone know how personally meaningful this is, and all of the work that you do on Willowbrook, how much it means to me. My son is 21. His name is Alex, and he just transitioned to adult life. And since the age of 2, I've been told by the state of New Jersey that Alex is at an institutional level of care. And then he made it to age 21 and without ever going to an institution. And he gets 16 hours a day of nursing care. And it's not perfect. It's not perfect, but he's home and he lives in the community, and he chooses the people who helps to care for him. He's living with a feeding tube. He uses a wheelchair. He's medically fragile. He has Down syndrome and autism. And I know that this is a life that he has that would have been unimaginable 50 years ago. And I have so much gratitude for everything that everyone has done, and the courage, because he gets to live his life. We don't have guardianship. It's supported decision making. I, at every moment, make people see him for the dignity and as a full human being, and to include him, even if he can only move one finger, even if he can't communicate in a way that's clear to other people. And this journey for me, from going as a person, as a young person, growing up in the 70s and the 80s and not seeing people with disabilities ever, almost until I had my own child when I was in my early 20s and having a baby with Down syndrome, and having a parent come to me in the hospital and saying to me, no one came to you and asked you if you wanted to take your baby home or not. No one came to you. And that mom, when she came to me, she said, they came to me and asked me and actually counseled me not to take my baby home. And it has not been easy. This has not been easy, but I know that this is only made possible by the work and the legacy of all the people here. And I'm so thankful.
Susan, you are an activist. You know, you have given your son this life. And what a wonderful thing, wonderful for him and wonderful for you, and the courage and all of the support. I've seen people make all different types of decisions in their lives, right, for their family. And this is a courageous one, and you've done so wonderfully. People will stand on your shoulders. People will be able to make decisions that they couldn't have made before without you saying this tonight. Become a voice here, Susan. You have an important voice, and thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you so much.
That's a very important message, Susan, because the parents after the Second World War were fighting the same fight that you're fighting now, which is people somehow feeling that because you couldn't speak for yourself or you had certain deficiencies that you weren't human. And so after the war, they began to try to educate people about the fact that anyone is a human being. There's no credentials to it. So, it's in one way a victory that you're still fighting, but it's also kind of sad because it's still the same issue.
But there are stories like yours, Susan, that will lift people to know that they can do this. This can be done, you know, and it's just a wonderful thing. I'll tell you a quick story. We're back in the archaic days of Willowbrook when I worked there. I used to work on a ward where there are people that laid on the floor on mats, and I played guitar and sang. That was my skill. And I used to sing to the people that were sitting in the back in the chairs, and I didn't pay too much attention to the people on the mats because they were so rigid from the spasticity from having no physical therapy, and they were just moved about like furniture, you know, like non-beings. And when I was singing one day, I looked down and I realized that 3 of the young boys there had turned towards me. See, they had always just been up and down, but I was sitting off to the left, and they turned their bodies towards me. And although they couldn't speak, I knew for the first time, it was like a gestalt for me as a 20-year-old, that they were there. They were people that were there that couldn't speak to me, they couldn't tell me, but they were there. And people have to understand that when people need a different level of care, it doesn't make them not there. It doesn't make them not absent. They're there. You don't understand the potential for those people, what they're feeling inside, what they're giving you. I'm sure as a mother, your son loves you and you feel it and you know it. And that interplay is something that's so important for you and for him. And today, that was that learning for me, because I was institutionalized myself as a worker. I worked there under these conditions, and I became desensitive to some things. But slowly, things hit me, and I was like, "Oh my God, why do I have my back to them? They're listening to me. They're hearing me." And your experience gives parents the sense to hear their own children and their own needs and their own children's potential. So your voice is really crucial. Join us in this. Join us in this, Susan. You're powerful.
Thank you so much. And then I also invited Deborah Weisbach, who's a friend of the project, who I think can give another angle. There you are. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, I guess I have a little bit of a different perspective. My brother lived at Willowbrook for approximately 10 years until he died. In 1968, unfortunately, he died of some sort of injury that remains unexplained. Prior to Michael Wilkins and Geraldo Rivera coming in. And my experience is that I had parents who didn't know how to fight. They just tried to survive. And I am just grateful for all the parents who have been able to fight for their children. My parents, they followed the rules. My recollection is that, yes, every Sunday, my father went to Willowbrook. He brought clothes. He went, he visited. But it was, I think it's taken decades to understand that my parents were not alone. I think there were many parents who they just didn't know what to do. They didn't understand. At the time in the 50s, Willowbrook was the place that he could go to school. He went when he was 6. And I think I figured out about 10 years ago in my 50s that he went when he was 6 because there was no place else that would take him for kindergarten. And and then he died. But I think what I've learned from that is that there are other ways to fight and to be an advocate. I'm a pediatrician. I've been a pediatrician for 35 years, and the thing that I enjoy the most is taking care of the children with special needs. It's become extremely, extremely difficult. I live in New Jersey. Getting care for your child is almost impossible. Getting care, getting nursing care, fighting with insurance companies, getting your child into a special needs school. And I think that that our government and our administration just needs to do more to provide for children. Insurance is just very challenging. So thank you. I don't generally like to speak about this, obviously, but I am so grateful for the Willowbrook Legacy Project that you have done the work that you've done.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that story. And you're right, during those years, as David is probably more learned than I am in this, the recommendation by the doctors, by the pediatricians at that time, was to place your son or daughter, especially if they were Down syndrome, into an institution. And remember, when Willowbrook opened its doors in 1947, it was meant to be a school. It was meant to have services. And then it just failed terribly because of underfunding and understaffing, and just the people who are responsible for the oversight of that care system failed terribly during that time. So the intention was there, but it just didn't pan out to be what they intended it to be. And I think your parents were in the majority. The parents that we saw today, the parents that were the plaintiffs, were a dozen people, right? And the institution was 5,500 people. People trusted their doctors. They trusted what they were told, and they had no options at all. They had no options at that time.
Deborah and Susan and anyone else who's listening, who have stories that they want to share, we would love to have those stories. And, please, we will follow up with you, but also people who haven't spoken, who want to share stories about their experience at Willowbrook or any other institution for that matter. Please contact us, and we will arrange a way to do that there.
Yeah. And we also are talking specifically to Deborah, we are talking about doing something with siblings. In my history over these many, many years, having worked at a very special place and run some residential alternatives, I can't tell you the number of people who, because we took a large number of people who were from Willowbrook into our programs, right? And I can't, probably, it's not hundreds, but I would say, and this is just in Staten Island, there were 10 people who were siblings who didn't know they had brothers and sisters, or thought that they had passed away because the parents didn't share it for one reason or another. So there were tremendous societal pressures on people and different things happening at that time in the 50s and 60s. So we're going to do some work with siblings, and Deborah, that might be something you want to participate in, because there are other siblings with similar situations as you were in.
Yeah.
And I think it does help to talk about it and to try and get a handle and understand that part of your personal history.
Yeah, thank you.
So I invited Eric Goldberg, who's a member of our Willowbrook Legacy Project. There you are.
I'm here.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yes, what I wanted to add is, first of all, I'm sure you saw it on the chat, Diane, you did wonderful hosting this. So did you, Catherine. So kudos to you. And what I mentioned into the chat and to the new parents here, Willowbrook will happen because a lot of parents are sitting back and letting it happen, I don't know how to say this the right way, but a lot of the parents that, except for the parents that have spoken today and others, the majority of parents, just think like the Willowbrook parents mentioned back in the day, that it's just coming to them. And that is not the case anymore. Take it from me. Me and my brother live in a group home, and, I can basically do much for myself, but my brother needs hands-on stuff. And you can see the quality of staffing and changes. So parents need to speak up. And I do want to say thank you to the Susan. Your story was very inspiring. My brother himself, when he was born, couldn't sign, couldn't walk, couldn't keep his head up. He was born with MR microcephalic, and now, thank God, except for some health issues, he's signing and everything. So kudos to you and kudos to Deborah as well for your input in helping us at the college. So thank you.
Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah. Is there anyone else who would like to join us and share your story? I think we can kind of aim at ending about 7:30, but if somebody else would like to speak, it's great to get this, the immediate from the parents that are parents and children and siblings and the people who are involved in the story. What you just saw was really the first half of a 2-hour program, and the second hour of that program was focused mostly on parents of the contemporary moment and to try to foster a conversation. So I just want to say we are planning on having a parents summit, and that I think can be considered quite broadly. It's not only for people who actually are parents, but anyone who's connected to a person with IDD and wants to learn more about how to be an effective advocate. So that's planned for November. We have a lot of things coming, and I want to invite you to come back for this year's Willowbrook Lecture. It's very exciting. Ronnie Cohen, who is has been overseeing the Willowbrook class and continues to do so, will be in conversation with a group of other people who are also involved in overseeing the class and making sure that their rights continue to be protected, and a group of other advocates and self-advocates that will also be part of that panel. So I think that's going to be really exciting, and I think it's now live. You can register for it live. So if you follow us on Eventbrite, you've probably already heard about it. But we're excited about that, and we have many other events that are going to be coming. One that I'm really looking forward to is going to be with the people who have been writing about Willowbrook, and so David is working on that for the project, and we'll be able to have...
Let me recommend that you read about
Bill
Willowbrook,
Bronson.
because the books that are out are really very insightful. And I want to say one thing, though, Diane. I worked at an institution, and I got to play my guitar as well. And my guitar playing was on the deaf and blind ward.
Okay.
They were my best audience.
Okay.
They were all there, and they all loved it.
That's very good. So we have a lot coming this year. I mean, we're just 3 months into the Year of Willowbrook. And I also will say one of the things, and you can see the pain and the joy both in the people who are connected to people with IDD. We're going to be having an event that is about that pain and the joy. I'm hoping it will be in August, before the opening of the Willowbrook Mile in September, that we'll have a non-denominational service, a celebration on the campus, a celebration of Thanksgiving for these people as part of our lives, as part of our families, as connected to us, as people that we love. And also a memorial service, because many people weren't ever able to truly mourn or say goodbye, and that has created tremendous trauma in many people in our community. And so we're hoping that will be an event that will bring the community together. And just as Malachi McCourt says, we need to gather in joy, and we also need to gather to mourn. And all of those things are important. So I really hope you'll come back, you'll join us. And as Diane says, join us, join the advocacy and activist group, because it is true, exactly what Eric says. Their complacency is problematic, and budget cuts are happening. There's undermining of services. We're going to have to join together and fight to keep the gains that these parents made possible. So thank you all so much for coming. Thank you to Deborah and Susan and Eric for being brave enough to come on stage with us. It's a little daunting, I'm sure, but we really do appreciate you sharing your perspectives on this. Okay.
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, for making it work.
Good night. Good night.